Hi everyone, today we're going to be discussing the Clinical Assessment of Articulation and Phonology 2nd Edition, commonly known as the CAAP-2. The Clinical Assessment of Articulation and Phonology 2nd Edition, also known as CAAP-2, was published in 2013 by ProEd Inc. It was written by Wayne A. Secor and Joanne S. Donahue. This test is used for examining one's articulation, phonological processes, and speech sound production. The CAAP-2 test is intended for preschool and school-aged children ages 2 years old and 6 months to 11 years and 11 months. Some clinician questions that will be answered are: can the child produce an English consonant? Are there articulation or phonological disorders present? And does your child have a motor production or motor planning deficit? The population norms for the CAAP-2 assessment include the age range of 2 years to 6 months to 11 years and 11 months. The sample size that was taken for this exam was from 1,486 children. The demographics for this assessment are for U.S. children, male and female, of different geographic regions, races, and ethnicities, socioeconomic statuses, and communication, speech, or language impairments. For standardization procedures, there is a sample size of 1,486 children. This allows for reliable, unbiased results for a diverse set of clients. The CAAP-2s can be given and scored quickly. The checklist method removes the need for transcriptions, which saves time. Raw scores are reported as standard in each test area. The second edition of the CAAP test was published in 2013. Alternatives to the CAAP include Goldman's Richter Test of Articulation, the Arizona Articulation Proficiency Scale, and Diagnostic Evaluation of Articulation and Phonology. How and when to use CAAP-2 within an evaluation battery. If intelligibility is low and caregivers are concerned about the child's speech sound production, CAAP-2 can be used to help identify if an articulation disorder or a phonological disorder is present. When planning for sample intervention implications, the results in CAAP-2 can identify specific error sound or phonological processes to eliminate and target in speech therapy. The rules for scoring the articulation inventory include counting every omission, distortion, and substitution as an error, adding up consonant singleton errors, cluster word errors, and multisyllabic word errors, and then the subtotals are added to give you a raw consonant inventory score. When converting raw to standard scores, you will use the norms table for children's chronological age, which is found in the examiner's manual. Find the child's raw consonant inventory score in the table. Then you will follow the score line to the right and find the standard score, confidence interval, and percentile rank. For our example, the client had a consonant inventory score of 64. If we find the norm table for the client's age, which is 4 years and 3 months, we see that 64 is a raw score range from 53 to 97, which indicates a standard score of less than 55 and a percentile rank of less than 1. How to interpret your scores. A mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15 is used to interpret CAAP-2 scores. 1 to 2 standard deviations below the mean indicates an articulation disorder might be present. A standard score of 85, which is 1 standard deviation below the mean, may suggest below average performance, while scores of 78, 1.5 standard deviations below the mean, or 70, 2 standard deviations below the mean are more commonly used to indicate a speech sound disorder. In our example, the client had a standard score of less than 55, which is over 3 standard deviations below the mean. This is significantly below average and indicates articulation well below age expectations. Now we will be talking about strengths and limitations. Some strengths that the CAAP-2 assessment has is quick assessment of phonological and articulation disorders, and a clear and easy way to use it. It gives us targeted sounds or phonological processes, as well as standardized scores. Some limitations that the CAAP-2 assessment has is limited sentence structure. It relies on single word production, which gives a somewhat limited speech sound. It also may not capture the full range of phonological processes that may be needed to be targeted. Usability and practical considerations. This test is very efficient to give. It takes between 15 to 20 minutes, and the materials include an easel, instruction manual, and scoring book. They should all be included with whatever set of CAAP-2 you buy. However, the test is not accessible if the person taking the test has visual impairments, as it involves looking at and identifying pictures. Auditory impairments could be an issue with this test because the SLP prompts the identifications. The large sample size allows for CAAP-2 to be culturally responsive because it represents the general population. Now we will be modeling the clinical assessment of articulation and phonology, also known as CAAP-2. This is everything you will need to administer the CAAP-2 assessment. This set includes an examiner's manual, response forms, and stimuli easel. Here we have the examiner's manual. Inside you will find administration guidelines, scoring procedures, targeted consonants, phonological process checklist, and normative data. Here we have the stimuli easel. You will use this to administer the assessment. Inside are pictures and prompts you will read to your child during the assessment. Now you will watch a demonstration of the CAAP-2 assessment. This is Peyton, a speech therapist at Starlight Therapy Center. With her is 4-year-old Callie, who appears to have some artic and phonological errors. Today, Peyton will administer the CAAP-2 test.
Today we are here with my wonderful client, Callie. She is 4 years old and will be doing the clinical assessment of articulation and phonology today, otherwise known as CAAP. So first we're going to start with the sample section and we're going to keep working through the test. Okay. What is this? What is this? Two. You're doing a great job. Let's look at some more. I'll show you a picture and you say what you see. What is this?
Pin.
When scoring this section, you will put a check mark if they say the right sound, a dash if they delete the sound, and if they say a different consonant, you will write what they replaced it with. Because Callie said P, we put a check for P and a dash for G.
What is this?
Bat.
If the child does not respond to the initial prompt, there is a second prompt at the bottom of the page to help you tell them what to do. So we have this. We will now continue our test. What are these? What are these?
Teeth.
Good job.
Callie said T, we would check for T and put a T for
We are now moving on to the cluster word section of this test, where you're seeing if the child can produce consonant clusters. We're going to start with this. Callie, what is this?
Clown.
For this section, you will document the same way you did for the first one, putting a check for K, W for L, and check for N.
What is this? You pledge allegiance to the
Flag.
Good job. What is this?
Hua.
What is this?
Dinosaur.
For this section, we put a slash through a deleted syllable, a check, minus, or an X mark through phonemes that they targeted correctly, or if they missed the phoneme, we write which one they put. So our client said dinosaur, so we put a slash through the syllable she missed and a check mark under the D, then put an for at the end. Now we will be calculating Callie's score. For all 3 singleton sections, you will count the errors and add them up into the sum of errors. Once you have the sum of errors, which for Callie, she has 42 in this section, you will put it in the box at the bottom. For the next section, you will do the exact same thing. Count up all of her errors and add them and put them in the box at the bottom. Same for the multisyllabic word section. Count all of her errors and put it in the box at the bottom. So Callie had 42 errors on the first section, 11 on the second, and 11 on the third. Then you will have a score of 64. After looking at the chart, we found that her standard score is less than 55, and her percentage rank is less than 1, meaning her age is less than 4.
I'm sorry.